They threw him into the fire pit like broken cargo. His skin blistered on contact with the scorched floor, his throat already torn from screaming back on the ship. But now there was no one to scream for, no audience, no mercy, no earth, just ash, iron, and silence. This planet burned as a sentence, a place where failed rebels were dumped like dry wood. The fire licked his legs. He didn't fight it. He closed his eyes. And then the heat shifted. Not faded, shifted, as if the flames were moving around someone. A shape broke through the molten glare, walking across the inferno, as though she owned it, as though it obeyed her. She wasn't armored. She wasn't even covered in metal. She was the fire. Her skin glowed like molten bronze kissed by dusk, and her hair flowed behind her like embers trapped in gravity. She looked down at him, and the flames parted where she stepped. He blinked, trying to crawl backward, but the fire no longer bit him. It recoiled, because she raised her hand. "Who threw you here?" she asked, not with anger, but with possession. Her voice wasn't human. It was like a slow burn across the ribs. He tried to speak. The words choked. "Don't," she whispered, and her palm came to rest on his chest. "You'll breathe again when I allow it." That should have terrified him. It didn't arouse him. It aroused him because, for the first time since he was captured, someone wasn't watching him die. She was claiming him in front of the flames. He didn't know her name. He didn't care. His body responded to her heat, like kindling desperate to be chosen. "I was told Earth's men die easily," she murmured, crouching over him, her molten eyes scanning the curves of his jaw. "But you're still here, still burning." "I was meant to burn," he rasped. "Then you're mine," she said, "because I never stopped burning." She didn't lift him. She didn't rescue him. She stepped into him, knelt, straddled, entered his space like the fire never could, her thigh against his waist, her bare stomach against his ribs, her breath as hot as iron just poured. She pressed her palm to his chest again, and the pain vanished. The flames receded. He gasped. She smiled, as if she had just made him kneel. From within. "Good," she whispered, brushing a line of sweat from his cheek. "Now scream for me, not for death." What if your death sentence became her invitation? What if fire wasn't the end, but the beginning of obsession? If you're still breathing, this story's just starting. Don't miss what she does next. Hit subscribe. She's not done with him, and neither are you. He thought she was saving him, but he learned quickly she was marking him. The fire never left her skin. Even when she lay against him, her body hummed with heat, not like a furnace, but like something alive. The burn on his chest where she touched him hadn't faded. It deepened, darkened, glowed. It wasn't a wound anymore. It was a brand, her symbol. "I don't bring mercy," she said the second night, standing over him as the stars bled orange behind her shoulder. "I bring recognition, and now the flame knows your name." She traced the symbol with her finger over and over. Each time, his skin ached, not from pain, but from want. He didn't understand how his body had turned against him like this. He should have been terrified. He should have begged for escape. But when her body pressed into his weight, when she wrapped herself around his broken limbs, like fire taking shape, he begged for her. "You could have left me," he whispered. "I did leave many like you," she answered, "but not you. You came to the fire, and didn't scream like the others. You saw that. I felt it." He didn't sleep that night, not because of nightmares, but because she didn't allow it. She pinned him beneath the starlight and firelight, her hands on either side of his head, her thighs tightening like iron forged by desire. She didn't kiss him, she consumed him. Her lips moved across his throat like wildfire licking a forest. Her tongue left trails of heat where no human had ever touched him, but it wasn't about lust alone. She needed something. "I chose you," she whispered into his ear, "because this world doesn't accept anything that won't burn. But you didn't resist the fire. You offered yourself to it." He stared at her, at the molten lines that coiled down her shoulders, her spine, her hips. What are you? I am the last ember of a dying sun, she breathed, and I needed a match. He wasn't strong. He wasn't a soldier. But the way she looked at him, now like he was the only human who ever mattered, he began to believe it. And when she lay beside him in the ash, pressing his hands against the sigil she carved into his chest, he didn't flinch. He moaned, because the heat didn't hurt anymore. It made him feel alive. She didn't save him. She ignited him. If fire had a lover, would it ever let go? He woke to the sound of her breathing. Not gentle, not human. Like a furnace exhaling slowly. Her back was to him, but even from this distance, he could feel her heat, how the air shimmered around her bare skin. The glow of her body was soft, now, like cooling embers, instead of raging fire. But she wasn't asleep. She was waiting. Do you want to know what your mark means? She asked without turning. He sat up slowly. The ashes around them whispered, but the fire had retreated to the horizon like it respected her silence. He nodded, his hand instinctively tracing the symbol on his chest. It's not a name, she said. It's a bond, a covenant. I branded you, because you accepted me, without a word, without resistance. Her voice lowered. And now, I need something more. She stood and turned, and the air left his lungs. She wasn't just beautiful, she was impossible. Her skin was dusk, turned liquid. Her eyes glowed not just with heat, but with longing. Need, not for control, not for war, but for worship. I am worshipped by fire, she said, approaching him step by step, feared by nations, bound to no one. But I ache, I burn deeper than I show. He rose to meet her. I can't offer you anything, he said honestly. No throne, no army. I don't even know how to touch you without burning. She placed her hand against his heart again. The same spot. You already are, she whispered. And then she knelt, a goddess, a queen, a woman of flames, kneeling for him. Not in submission, but in invitation. Worship isn't about kneeling, she said softly. It's about devotion. I've burned alone for centuries. Let me feel your hands like they believe I'm more than heat. He dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands trembling. He didn't grab, he didn't claim. He touched her like she was sacred. His fingers traced the curve of her waist, the hollow beneath her throat, the pulse behind her ear. Each place he touched flared with bioluminescent heat, as though his love fed her fire. She shuddered. Your body, she breathed, doesn't resist me. It sings to me. He leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers. Then let me be your silence, he whispered, when the fire screams too loud. She gasped, and then she melted. There was no bed, no blanket, just ash, flame, and two bodies fusing in reverence. He kissed her not like a man starved, but like a soul that finally found home. Her legs wrapped around him, not with dominance, but with desperation. And when she cried out, it wasn't fire, it was release. Because she hadn't been loved. She had only ever been feared, until now. What if fire didn't want to burn you, but be touched? She was flame incarnate, worshipped, feared, untouchable. But he gave her the one thing no one else had. Devotion without fear. He should have suffocated. The air was too thin, the ash too heavy, and her body, her heat, was overwhelming. But as her mouth met his again and again, he didn't choke. He thrived. The fire didn't consume his lungs. It filled them. Because she was breathing for him. Their lips parted only when her breath finally trembled like she had given him too much. She leaned back, skin shimmering with flickers of gold and red. Her chest rising like she'd just climbed out of her own element and into something far more dangerous. Intimacy. I gave you breath, she whispered, fingers tracing the mark on his chest. Because mine no longer means anything alone. He cupped her jaw. You were born from fire, he said, but you weren't meant to burn alone. Her eyes fluttered shut. and for a second, just a second, her flame dimmed up from weakness, but from trust. She sank onto him like gravity had pulled her into his orbit, not the other way around. Her body wrapped around his like molten metal, taking shape. He moved with her, not as a conqueror or captive but as an offering. Every thrust was a vow, every sigh, a surrender. And when she gasped into his shoulder and clutched him like a lifeline, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't the one in danger anymore. She was. She had given herself to him, not just her body, her eternity. "I've scorched worlds," she murmured between moans, her voice cracking like lightning in the rain. "I've held cities hostage with a glance. But you touched me like I was breakable." He pulled her face close until their foreheads touched again. "Because you are." And when she kissed him, this time it wasn't fire, it was hope. The flame around them curled into walls, rising high above, like sentinels. They weren't burning for destruction anymore. They were guarding them. He let go, fully, arms wrapped around her spine, hands gripping her hips, lips pressed to the hollow of her throat. He gave her every piece of himself, because she'd already taken the rest. And when she finally cried out his name, his true name, spoken not with sound but with flame, he felt the symbol on his chest pulse with light. She collapsed on top of him, breath shuddering. "I gave you everything," she whispered. "You gave me more," he replied. And in that moment, the fire bowed. The planet didn't burn that night. It witnessed. She didn't need a throne. She needed someone who'd touch her without fear. She gave him breath. He gave her his soul. When gods surrender, it's never quiet. Subscribe if you believe fire can fall in love. Asterisk. The sun never rose on this planet, because the fire was the sun. It danced across the sky in waves of gold and crimson, igniting the clouds in slow spirals. But this morning, it burned differently. Softer, slower, as if it too was waking up. Beside someone it never thought would stay. He opened his eyes to find her still wrapped around him, not like a queen clinging to power, but like a woman afraid to breathe without him. Her hair still flickering with glowing threads, spilled across his chest. Her lips hovered just above his heart, as if guarding the symbol she branded there. The mark no longer seared, it shined. She stirred, lifting her head slowly. Her voice once firestorms, and fury was quiet. "I dreamed the flame turned human," she whispered, "and loved me so hard I forgot how to burn alone." He smiled faintly, brushing her cheek. "You didn't dream it." A tremble ran through her body, not from cold. She couldn't feel that but from fear, not of war, not of rebellion, but of what she'd become. "Tell me," she said, voice cracking, "if you leave now, will the fire forget you?" "No," he said, "because you'll carry me." Her eyes, molten gold with rings of violets, searched his. "You mean that?" He nodded. "You didn't take me prisoner. You made me part of you. That brand, it's not yours anymore, it's ours." And then he stood, naked, scarred, marked the fire around the pit, roared but didn't attack. It responded, it bent to him, just as it had to her. She gasped, stepping forward. "The mark." He looked down at his chest and saw it glowing brighter than before. "Alive, evolving, it's choosing," she said breathlessly. "No," he corrected. "I am." She stepped into him, and he caught her, held her like he'd always known how. Their bodies pressed together, no longer in worship or desperation, but in unity. She kissed him not as a goddess nor as a weapon but as a woman who finally knew how to belong. The flames behind her twisted into columns, spiraling upward like wings, and for the first time, the fire spoke, not in words, in recognition. It whispered his name across the ashes. He had no crown, no ship, no rank, but this world of heat and death had just chosen a new name for itself, and it was his. He was meant to burn. Instead, he rose. She found him in the flames. But it was he who taught the fire to feel. If you believe even gods can fall in love, share this story. *Subscribe. He wasn't her prisoner, he was her beginning.